Edgar Cayce disclosed that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was selected not solely for her purity, but also because she had been carefully prepared over many years by a secret spiritual group known as the Essenes. In his readings from the 1930s and 1940s, Cayce illustrated how this ancient community, residing near Mount Carmel, recognized through their own prophetic insights that a soul of great cosmic significance was destined to incarnate soon. They did not leave this to fate. Starting at the age of 4, Mary's surroundings, education, and spiritual development were meticulously shaped to ensure she could fulfill the pivotal role in the most significant mission in human history. And this is what will challenge your entire perspective. Cayce provided particular insights into the essence and the rituals surrounding Mary's preparation, insights that were validated with the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, just 2 years following his passing. But what did this preparation truly encompass? And what was Cayce's source of knowledge about a community that conventional historians often overlook? Stick with me, as over the next few moments, we'll explore the physical, mental, and spiritual training that Mary experienced, drawing from Cayce's archived readings, and how these teachings can unveil aspects of your own spiritual potential. Before we proceed, ensure that you're subscribed and have enabled notifications. The knowledge we are about to delve into goes beyond mere historical interest. It serves as a guide for awakening consciousness, potentially changing your life from this very moment. Cayce's readings indicate that the Essenes were not simply a minor religious sect. Rather, they emerged from the preparatory periods influenced by the teachings of Melchizedek, as conveyed by Elijah, Elisha, and Samuel. They were dedicated to maintaining a direct lineage for the purpose of becoming channels for the new or divine origins. Their way of life adhered to rigorous standards of purity, communal living, and ongoing prayer. Cayce disclosed that they possessed ancient texts and predictions regarding the arrival of the Messiah, and were knowledgeable about how to ready the mother responsible for bringing him into existence. According to Cayce's recorded readings, Mary's existence was exceptional right from the outset. Both Mary and Joseph were brought to the Essenes, having been consecrated by their parents. Even prior to her birth, her ancestry was selected for its spiritual devotion. Cayce elaborated that the Essenes held the belief that the physical body serves as a sacred temple, and thus, for Mary to bear a soul of such significance, her preparation needed to be thorough. He believed that a harmonious combination of physical well-being, mental sharpness, and spiritual alignment forms a vibrational field capable of drawing in particular souls, which he referred to as the law of spiritual attraction. When Mary reached the age of 4, as per Cayce's readings, the Essenes welcomed her into their community for thorough preparation. Cayce suggested that she was immersed in a setting meticulously crafted to enhance her awareness. Dietary restrictions were clear. No wine or any fermented beverages were allowed, and only designated foods were provided. These were maintained in harmony based on the initial guidelines established by Aaron and Rata. She learned breathing techniques, prayers to harmonize her intentions with the divine, and methods that helped her maintain mental stability. Cayce pointed out that in the Essene community, women were regarded as equals to men in their roles, capabilities, and their potential to be channels for the divine. However, what's even more remarkable is that Cayce emphasized that this training was not focused on venerating Mary herself, but rather on the sacred duty that she would undertake. Cayce disclosed that Mary and Jesus were twin souls, suggesting that initially, Mary was the twin soul of the Master during the transition into the physical realm. The Essenes recognized that the soul destined to be born through her was already an advanced being in terms of consciousness. Mary's purpose was to create the most harmonious environment for that soul's entry. This is where Cayce's teachings become profoundly significant for everyone, as the same principles utilized in preparing Mary can also be employed to ready ourselves for elevated levels of spiritual awareness. In his readings, Cayce clarified that the path to divine service is never random. Whether one is meant to lead a movement, heal others, or stimulate spiritual truth in their own life, the journey consistently requires purification, attunement, and intentionality. The Essenes engaged in this with intention. They recognized that being a pure vessel does not equate to an ideal human devoid of imperfections, but rather to a person dedicated to harmonizing every thought, deed, and expression with a greater purpose. Cayce conveyed that every individual emanates the frequency they align themselves with, which underscores why the Essene example serves as a paradigm for spiritual readiness. Additionally, Cayce disclosed insights that many are unaware of. In several readings, he emphasized that the Essenes utilized sound and vibration as instruments for healing and spiritual growth. He stated that music, sounds, and colors could significantly influence the vibrations surrounding people. Cayce outlined certain chanting methods and vibrational techniques aimed at harmonizing spiritual centers and enhancing awareness. This was long before contemporary science started investigating the impact of sound frequencies on mental and physical conditions. In just a moment, I will reveal Cayce's most well-documented narrative regarding Mary's selection. The very instant she was chosen on the temple steps through a manifestation that Cayce depicted with remarkable detail. First, consider this. If your life were being prepared for a mission solely known to the divine, how would you approach your mind, body, and spirit starting today? Cayce provides one of the most comprehensive descriptions of Mary's selection on the temple steps in all of his work. He recounted how, at the age of 12 or 13, Mary took part in a ceremony on the temple steps of Mount Carmel. These steps led to the altar and were known as the temple steps. They were the same steps that welcomed the morning sun, marking the early moments when the chosen maidens would ascend to the altar for prayer and to offer incense. Cayce elaborated that on this particular day, as they ascended the stairs, everyone was illuminated by the morning sunlight, which not only created a stunning scene, but also adorned everyone in hues of purple and gold. As Mary reached the top step, thunder and lightning erupted, and the angel guided them forward, taking the child's hand before the altar. This exemplified a chosen path. It signified the direction to follow, as she was leading the others on this significant day. When inquired whether it was the Orthodox Jewish temple or the Essene temple, Cayce affirmed it was indeed the Essene, referencing the commitment to those visions declared by Zacharias in the Orthodox temple, where he was slain even while gripping the horns of the altar. Thus, those present were being safeguarded in Carmel. This was more than just a ceremony. It served as a confirmation. Cayce indicated that Mary went through years of preparation, initially guiding us in physical training, followed by mental exercises focused on purity, chastity, love, patience, and endurance. Many today might view these experiences as persecutions, but they were in fact tests of both physical and mental resilience, all overseen by caretakers who ensured the quality of nourishment through proper food values. However, what truly adds to the significance of this account is that Cayce provided detailed descriptions of the Essenes and their practices long before the Dead Sea Scrolls were unearthed in 1947. The discovery of those ancient writings validated the presence of a structured religious group residing close to the Dead Sea, engaging in communal lifestyles, specific dietary practices, and rigorous spiritual preparation, exactly as Cayce had illustrated. A particularly intriguing element of Cayce's readings is his assertion that the Essenes were aiming towards a cosmic purpose. When inquired about the selection process, he clarified that individuals were initially devoted and subsequently chosen based on their spiritual progress to determine if they would act merely as conduits for broader services. These individuals were designated for specific roles at different times, akin to the 12 who were selected at that moment, serving as a pertinent example. The Essenes were not simply preparing Mary at random. They adhered to ancient wisdom regarding spiritual cycles and the necessary preparation involved. Cayce posited that consciousness influences reality, and the circumstances surrounding a soul's entry can either support or obstruct its purpose. In Mary's instance, there would be no disruptions, no unintended interruptions to the divine scheme, but Cayce's insights went further. His readings indicated that following Mary's selection, she underwent a preparatory phase lasting approximately 3 to 4 years before her mission commenced in earnest. He explained that during the time of the initial promise, while she was still in training due to her selection, this preparatory duration spanned about 3 to 4 years. However, when he came to take her as his bride, during the ages of 16 to 17, she was already found to be with child. This introduces one of Cayce's most remarkable teachings regarding spiritual readiness. He emphasized that the Mary principle is relevant to every individual, suggesting that we all serve as vessels for divine influence. What we present to the world, be it a vision, a mission, or healing, depends on our personal preparation. Cayce taught that to align with enhanced health and spiritual insight, one must recognize the importance of vibration and preparation, even just 3 minutes into the future. I will soon share what Cayce revealed about why this preparation was recorded, not solely for that era, but because humanity would require this specific guide once more. Before we delve into that, consider this. What might you achieve if every element of your life was perfectly aligned with your soul's highest purpose? In his readings, Cayce discussed spiritual cycles influencing humanity, noting that these cycles would emerge during the years 58 to 98, which he indicated as times when his light would be visible in the clouds. He described how humanity experiences expansive waves of consciousness, noting that specific times necessitate deep spiritual readiness. The Essenes, with their ancestral wisdom, recognized they were on the brink of such a cycle. Mary's mission was pivotal for that era, yet Cayce cautioned that comparable preparation would be needed in future generations. This was not mere theoretical conjecture. Cayce pointed out that spiritual rejuvenation adheres to certain patterns, revealing that the circumstances we encounter today resemble those of the Essenes, highlighting the demand for spiritual truth, genuine preparation, and communities committed to elevated consciousness. Cayce elaborated in his readings on the role of the Essenes in preserving Mary's spiritual integrity and concentration. They enveloped her in unceasing prayer, upheld routines of daily devotion, and shielded her from surroundings that might disturb her inner tranquility. They viewed her not as delicate, but as invaluable, akin to a vessel requiring thoughtful care until it was time to serve its purpose. This was not an isolation rooted in fear, but a deliberate nurturing of a life that resonated with divine intent. This aspect of Cayce's narrative holds even greater significance for us in the present day. Cayce articulated that life, in all its forms, is essentially vibration, emphasizing that the Mary principle is relevant to every individual soul. The Essenes regarded preparation as a sacred endeavor, and Cayce urged contemporary seekers to adopt a similar attitude. He affirmed that sounds, vibrations, and music are the most effective means of providing healing and vigor to the body, illustrating that the same methods utilized during Mary's preparation are accessible to us now. In his readings, Cayce explained that throughout the years of Mary's preparation, the Essenes adhered to particular practices aimed at fostering spiritual receptivity. They recognized that spiritual growth necessitates a regular daily commitment, proper nutrition, support from the community, and environments rich in spiritual energy. Cayce highlighted that these practices were not mere superstitions. Rather, they were practical implementations of spiritual principles. However, there's an even more profound aspect. His readings indicate that Mary's preparation involved frequent times of silent reflection and seeking inner wisdom. The Essenes referred to this as tuning in to the voice, a method designed to eliminate distractions, allowing the soul to receive divine guidance unobstructed. These practices were not ways to avoid accountability. These were crucial exercises for the upcoming mission. Cayce emphasized that contemporary spiritual seekers could significantly gain from reintroducing moments of purposeful silence and introspection. Shortly, I will present Cayce's remarks on the reasons the Essenes recorded each aspect of Mary's preparation and his belief that this wisdom is meant to emerge in our current era. However, take a moment to reflect on this. Are you conducting your life in a manner that would prepare you if your destined moment appeared tomorrow? As per Cayce's insights, the Essenes recorded their methods of preparation, recognizing the significance of spiritual cycles and understanding that their efforts would have implications beyond their era. Cayce noted that these age-old practices were maintained not simply through physical documentation, but also within what he referred to as the Akashic records, a cosmic repository of all human experiences. He posited that during times of spiritual turmoil and ethical ambiguity, this wisdom would re-emerge to assist humanity. According to Cayce's readings, the Essenes adhered to the regular rituals within the temple, as it's important to note that the Jewish people were not prevented from observing their sacred practices. Members of other groups, like the Egyptians or the Parthians, did not shy away from adhering to the customs they had been taught. This indicates that their practices could be modified for various cultures and eras while maintaining their effectiveness. What surprised scholars studying Cayce's teachings was his assertion that, in our present time, the duty of preparation would not rest solely on individual spiritual communities. Rather, Cayce proposed that every genuine seeker must embrace the responsibility of transforming into a vessel for a higher purpose. The ascetic model is meant to provide inspiration and guidance, not to act as a substitute for personal discipline. Cayce established a comparison in his readings. Similar to how Mary's openness facilitated the arrival of the Christ consciousness into the world, your own readiness will enable divine influence to permeate your life, work, and generation. He emphasized that this was not merely a poetic metaphor, but rather a principle of spiritual law. Those who are prepared can attract elevated realities, while those who are unready may let lesser forces take control. Nevertheless, there was one final insight in his readings that appeared to be specifically directed at our generation. Cayce asserted that during significant shifts on the planet, age-old knowledge re-emerges in human awareness. He proposed that the current surge of interest in holistic lifestyles, meditation, sound therapy, and ancient teachings is not coincidental. Such insights were foreseen by groups such as the Essenes. Cayce's insights offer concrete advice that is applicable in today's context. This includes mindful nutrition, certain foods like fermented beverages, regular spiritual practices, physical activity, mental cultivation in virtues like chastity, purity, love, patience, resilience, and the support of a community on a shared spiritual journey. These are not merely archaic religious regulations. Rather, they serve as useful instruments for spiritual growth that are still relevant today. Here lies the option presented by Cayce in his teachings: to either view these principles as relics of the past, or to regard them as an inspiration for action. He emphasized that each individual emits the frequency to which they attune themselves. If we opt to emulate the ascens, then every meal, every action, and every utterance becomes an element of a process that could enable light to penetrate the world in ways we have yet to comprehend. The ascens accomplished their responsibilities in their era, and Mary embraced her universal role through careful preparation. Based on Cayce's readings, the key question lies in whether we will fulfill our part. He indicated that individuals who engage in spiritual preparation during periods of global transformation can act as conduits for the same divine energies that operate through Jesus and Mary. However, the most astonishing aspect that may reshape your perspective on your spiritual journey is this. Cayce disclosed that the ascens were not solely focused on Mary. Instead, they were readying an entire generation of souls destined to reincarnate in our era, poised to assist humanity in experiencing its forthcoming significant spiritual awakening. In his interpretations, Cayce recognized certain individuals from his time who had previously been present during Jesus' era, now returning with a shared purpose: to pave the way for an elevated state of human awareness. Reflect on this. If Cayce's insights are accurate, some of you viewing this video could very well be those same souls. You may have returned to finish what was initiated over 2 millennia ago. The strong attraction you experience towards holistic practices, meditation, sound healing, and ancient knowledge is not merely coincidental. It's your soul recalling its true purpose. Cayce explained that these returning ascens would discern one another through their mutual commitment to spiritual growth and their innate comprehension of the principles he articulated. This leads us to arguably the most impactful and transformative feature of Cayce's teachings on ascens: the daily practices that can unlock your own spiritual potential. Whether you are a reincarnated ascens soul or someone called to serve a higher purpose, Cayce didn't merely outline the actions of the ascens. He offered a comprehensive guide that contemporary seekers can utilize to reach the same spiritual alignment that equipped Mary for her universal mission. To begin, the ascen diet that Cayce disclosed extends well beyond the avoidance of wine or fermented beverages. Based on his studies, the ascens recognized that various foods emit distinct vibrational frequencies. They steered clear of any foods that produced feelings of heaviness or cloudiness in the mind. This included avoiding processed items, as well as foods cultivated in environments of anger or violence, along with certain combinations that could either enhance or diminish spiritual awareness. Cayce emphasized that our physical bodies are fundamentally composed of what we ingest, highlighting that for true spiritual growth, intentional nutrition is essential. The ascens primarily consumed foods that grew above the ground, favoring those nurtured by sunlight, and they offered blessings for all their meals to align them with a higher purpose. However, the dietary changes were merely the starting point. Cayce disclosed that the assigners engaged in what we might refer to today as optimizing circadian rhythms. They organized their daily routines in accordance with natural cycles, a concept that contemporary science is just beginning to grasp. They would awake before sunrise for meditation and prayer, as Cayce asserted that this is when the barrier between dimensions is at its weakest. Their activities, including work, meals, and rest, were structured to align their energy with the rhythms of the cosmos. This way of life was not primitive at all. Rather, It represented an advanced form of spiritual technology presented through seemingly simple methods. You might be surprised to learn this. Cayce depicted a scenario involving healing techniques that closely resemble contemporary energy medicine and biofeedback. The Asans employed what Cayce referred to as the laying on of hands, along with particular breathing patterns and visualization methods, to harmonize the body's spiritual centers. They recognized that illness originates in the spiritual body before appearing physically, focusing their treatment on the energetic root causes rather than merely addressing symptoms. Cayce disclosed that they had the ability to perceive the aura or energy field surrounding individuals, allowing them to identify imbalances prior to their physical manifestation. The Asans also engaged in a practice which Cayce referred to as group consciousness, a type of collective meditation wherein individual minds blended into a single awareness field. Through these sessions, they were capable of tapping into what Cayce described as the universal consciousness or Akashic records. This understanding enabled them to be aware of Jesus' forthcoming mission long before it came to fruition. Individuals would enter these collective states to gain insights on various topics, ranging from healing methods to farming techniques, as well as approaches for spiritual readiness. This is where things become particularly intriguing for us now. Cayce indicated that this same group consciousness is re-emerging in the present day, but it is now unfolding on a global scale, facilitated by technology and a rise in spiritual awareness. Each time someone views a video like this, engages in meditation, or embraces conscious living, they are adding to a shared awareness that is aligning humanity for its next evolutionary advancement. The Asans operated within a small community at Mount Carmel, whereas today's Asans are interconnected worldwide. However, there's one crucial detail Cayce shared about the Asans that many overlook, and this insight is essential for grasping the power behind their preparation techniques. The Asans not only engaged in spiritual practices on their own, but also fostered what Cayce referred to as group harmony, where the spiritual growth of each individual contributed to the advancement of the others. They recognized that consciousness can spread, and being in the presence of individuals dedicated to noble goals naturally raises your own spiritual vibration. This understanding led Cayce to stress the importance of finding your spiritual community or your contemporary Asane group for anyone who is genuinely committed to spiritual development. This could be an online platform, a meditation gathering, a holistic health group, or simply a few friends dedicated to conscious living. Being surrounded by others on the spiritual journey creates a collaborative energy that enhances growth for everyone involved. The Asans were aware that spiritual progress is not a solitary pursuit. It is a collective endeavor. Additionally, Cayce disclosed that the Asans also practiced what we might define as environmental awareness. They recognized that the environment around you significantly influences your spiritual well-being. They deliberately selected the site for their community close to Mount Carmel due to the unique energetic characteristics of that area. They organized their living arrangements based on principles that fostered meditation and openness to spiritual experiences. They also considered the colors, sounds, and natural components of their surroundings, knowing that everything in your environment can either facilitate or obstruct your spiritual growth. For us in the present day, this implies being mindful of the energy present in our homes, workspaces, and the locations we frequent. This involves selecting music, colors, and natural elements that nurture our spiritual energy instead of depleting it. It also entails understanding that clutter, intense lighting, and disordered surroundings can hinder our connection to higher consciousness, while clean, harmonious, and naturally illuminated spaces can significantly improve our spiritual practices. Now let's bring it all together. According to Cayce, the essence viewed service as the highest form of spiritual practice. Every aspect of their lives, from their dietary choices to meditation and community living, was oriented towards one purpose: preparing to fulfill the divine plan. They didn't seek spiritual growth for their own benefit or self-awareness. Instead, their development aimed at becoming more effective contributors to the greater good. This explains why Mary's preparation was so impactful. It wasn't intended to elevate her status, but rather to ensure her total openness to divine will. This is the insight that can change your own spiritual path. Shifting your focus from pursuing personal spiritual experiences to preparing to serve a higher purpose creates an acceleration in your life. Your intuition becomes more refined. Your energy amplifies. Opportunities begin to align perfectly, and you start to feel the spiritual support reminiscent of what the Asans nurtured around Mary. If this message strikes a chord with you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to this channel, activate notifications, and share this video with those who are in search of a deeper sense of purpose. Leave a comment about one change you will make in your daily routine to align with your highest calling, and reflect on this. Are you ready to embody the essence of a modern sage, getting ready not only for your own awakening, but also to contribute to humanity's upcoming significant spiritual evolution? By embracing the knowledge captured in Cayce's recorded readings and exemplified by the Asans, we can transform into the receptive instruments that our world urgently requires at this moment.